Hello, this presentation will be detailing our workplace violence prevention program. For 2024, the state of California requires all companies to create and implement a workplace violence prevention program. This program includes the creation of a written policy, clarified reporting procedures, and an annual training session. The agenda for this training is to identify the person at our company responsible for the prevention plan. We will describe what workplace violence is and what our company violence prevention plan is. Also, we will guide you on how to report hazards and incidents, also to seek assistance to prevent or respond to violence. And lastly, we will discuss the post-incident investigation and the violent incident log. We are happy to announce that Roy Castillo, the Director of Administration and Legal Department, will be our company's Workplace Violence Prevention Program Administrator. If you're concerned about a potential hazard or about a person, you're expected to contact Roy Castillo or send an email to contacthr@selfservepetro.com. What is workplace violence? Workplace violence is any act of violence or threat of violence that occurs in a place of employment. Includes, but is not limited to, the threat or use of physical force against an employee that results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, psychological trauma, or stress, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury. An incident involving a threat or use of a firearm or other dangerous weapon, including the use of common objects as weapons, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury. And lastly, self-defense or defense of others is not considered an act of workplace violence. There are several types of violence. First, violence committed by a person who has no legitimate business at the work site. Next, violence committed by a customer, client, or visitor. Next, violence committed by a current or former employee, supervisor, or manager. And lastly, violence committed by a non-worker with a personal relationship with an employee. Next, we will cover our company's violence prevention plan. Our company has a zero tolerance policy with regard to workplace violence. Our expectation for each employee is that you will comply with the zero tolerance policy, that you will demonstrate safe workplace practices, and lastly, that you will report any violent incident, threats, or other violence concerns. You can obtain a copy of the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan by asking your manager or supervisor or emailing contacthr@selfservepetro.com. A written or electronic copy will be provided. Next, we will cover how to report hazards and incidents. All threats or acts of workplace violence must be reported to your supervisor, manager, or directly to our Workplace Violence Prevention Program Administrator. All potentially hazardous conditions must be reported to your supervisor, manager, or directly to our Workplace Violence Prevention Program Administrator. Our company has a strict no retaliation policy for all reports made in good faith. Hazard identification and evaluation. Store managers are directed to inspect the store and work site monthly. The goal is to identify unsafe conditions and work practices. Don't wait for your supervisor to discover a problem. Tell someone. How to seek assistance to prevent or respond to violence. For immediate issues, call 911. Your safety, the safety of your coworkers and customers is our primary concern. Once you're safe, notify your manager. Associates should use the store phone to alert others of the presence, location, and nature of the emergency. Employees should be aware of evacuation and sheltering plans for their work site, including emergency exits and shelter locations. Managers and employees should foster a supportive, harmonious work environment. Mutual respect can help reduce harassment and hostility in the workplace. Managers and employees should communicate openly and give employees support and recognition. Employees and managers should develop skills in effective communication, team building, and resolving disputes. Workplace violence warning signs can include direct or indirect threats, intimidating, belligerent, harassing, bullying, or other inappropriate or aggressive behavior, statements that show a fascination with incidents of workplace violence, or the approval of the use of violence to resolve a problem. Statements indicating desperation to the point of suicide, extreme changes in behavior, numerous conflicts with supervisors and other employees, bringing a weapon to the workplace, brandishing a weapon in the workplace, making inappropriate references to guns or fascination with weapons. If a potential or violent incident occurs, do your best to stay calm. Don't show anger or raise your voice. Speak to the other person quietly and calmly. Try to put physical space between yourself and the person. Call 911 if immediate danger or someone is injured. And lastly, notify your store manager when it's safe to do so. If a potential or violent incident occurs, do not escalate the situation. Do not make any aggressive moves towards the person. Do not argue with the other person or use defensive sprays or weapons. Do not fight with the other person or try to break up or physically intervene in a violent act. Lastly, do not risk getting yourself hurt. Avoiding risky situations. Avoid areas that may expose you to physical hazards or persons of concern. Inform your store manager if an area or task concerns you. Utilize your store manager if a customer appears to create a risk. The customer is not always right. Our company does not need every customer and doesn't want you at risk. Properly manage cash as per our company policy. As a reminder, as related to our company policy regarding cash, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., you are not to have more than $400 cash on hand total. From 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., do not have more than $300 cash on hand total. And from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., do not have more than $100 cash on hand. Remember, do not keep $100 bills inside the cash register. Make sure you deposit the $100 bills immediately after receipt. Any excess money over the maximum needs to be dropped immediately into the safe. Post-incident investigation and the violent incident log. Response and investigation. After an incident, our company will investigate by visiting the scene, interviewing individuals involved, and reviewing any video footage. Our Workplace Violence Prevention Program Administrator will complete the violent incident log. The violent incident log will include the date, time, and location of the incident, a detailed description of the incident, and the classification of the individuals involved. The log will also include the violence type, including whether it was a physical attack or threat, whether weapons or other objects were involved, or whether it was a sexual assault. Consequences of the incident, including whether security or law enforcement was contacted, and whether actions were taken to protect employees from a continuing threat. Our company will retain the log for 5 years and omit personal identifying information. Employees are entitled to view and copy the log within 15 calendar days of a request. Following an incident, our company will review the causes and risks and take corrective measures. Additional training to reduce future risk will be provided as needed. You are encouraged to make suggestions. If you have any questions, please ask. We are here to help.